And right now, we want to bring in One American News political commentator Corey Lewandowski. Hi, Corey. How's your day going so far?
My day's great, Sarah. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. Did you have a nice President's Day weekend? Did you do anything in particular?
I just worked here, right? There's a lot of stuff going on in Washington, so I just stayed here and worked.
Absolutely. No days off, even on that President's Day holiday. Well, Corey, I want to get into this new executive order on immigration that we are expecting to see sometime today. How do you think the language will satisfy the courts this time around? And what will happen with the original executive order?
Well, I can't speak to what they'll do with the original executive order, but what I think will happen is it will continue to work its way through the court process. I'm not sure if they will rescind that completely or they'll allow it to potentially go and be brought forward to the Supreme Court to question the Ninth Circuit's ruling. But what I do think you'll find in this particular order is going to be much more narrow, and it's a question of constitutionality. Does the president, under the articles of the Constitution, have the legal authority to limit individuals from coming into the country? And the question is, the answer to that question is absolutely and unequivocally yes. Now, with the new order, I think what you'll see is it's a much more defined area that he's talking about, not country-wise, but he's given more time for people to come in. It excludes people, I believe, with green cards from the initial information. And what that allows a number of agencies to do is to be fully prepared for implementation. It is very likely that a liberal judge who wants to legislate from the bench will still look at this, and potentially the Ninth Circuit will still review this. But it becomes a question of constitutionality. And the question is, does the president have the legal authority under the Constitution of the United States to limit individuals and visa access for coming into the country? The answer is yes.
Yeah, do you think it'll maybe ease the tensions of the rollout of that first executive order? Or do you think kind of public opinion about that, and with the courts too, that no matter what he rolls out for this new executive order, that it sort of tainted their opinion of it?
Well, what you'll have is, no matter what, you're going to have people who are going to complain and bicker and say that it's not the right thing to do. But I think what the president's objective here is, and he's talked about this very much both on the campaign trail and since he's been in office for the last 30 days, is to make sure that we understand fully, through a proper vetting process, who the individuals are that are coming into our country and making sure that they are not doing so to harm Americans. The number one job of the president is to make sure that the citizens of this great country are safe and secure. And what the president is saying is, let's make sure we have a system in place that through the State Department and through our government agencies that we fully understand who is coming into our country before we give them the high privilege of coming here.
And there's some other executive orders that are set to be signed as well, and some of those are to reverse the Obama administration environmental regulations. Once these are undone by President Trump, what kind of effect do you think this will have on the economy as far as jobs and also for America's energy?
What you have is you're unleashing a massive energy potential, and what you're doing is you're saying the U.S. government is now open for business. And what the previous administration did is they used the Department of Justice, the Environmental Protection Agency, and the Department of Labor punitively against corporations. And what that meant was that companies didn't want to expand, they didn't want to grow, they were afraid of the federal government. This administration's mindset is completely different. What the president wants to make sure is that the government is now working for the people again. And what that means is that we're not going to use the government in a pejorative fashion. They're not going to go after businesses that are trying to grow. They're not going to impose egregious EPA regulations on pond water dripping off the roof of your farmhouse in the middle of Kansas and say that all of a sudden it's a wetland. You have to be reasonable, and if by doing so you are encouraging small businesses and large businesses to grow and add to the economy, that's the success that this country will need to be prosperous and grow at a greater growth rate than the 1% that we've seen over the past 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, and we talk about growth. We've seen the stock market just completely take off, the 8th straight day of consecutive growth for those 3 major indices. How do you think some of these, with the new executive order repealing those Obama regulations on climate, how do you think that will affect the markets? And you think that we can consider to see them continue to rally with more job growth that the president is creating?
if you look at what the market's done since Donald Trump was elected president back on November 8th, it is absolutely through the roof right now. And the reason for that is because investor confidence is exceptionally high. We have a chief executive officer sitting in the Oval Office who understands that the government is the problem, not the solution. We have a person who is intimately involved in the negotiations of government contracts, meaning that we're going to save taxpayer monies and we're not going to waste them like we've talked about in the past. So, from the business community, from the stock community, from the just the notion of job creation, it is a very friendly environment right now. And what you see is investors are coming off the sideline. They're putting more money into the economy. They're hiring more people. We're growing the economy for a change. And the president has been very clear. His goal is to make sure 25 million more people are at work than when he started at the beginning of this administration a month ago. And if you look and see what he's accomplished in the first 30 days of this administration, the markets are with him, the people are with him. The only people that's been against him is the mainstream media, and I think in general the people are happy about that.
Yeah, it is pretty remarkable to think that this president has only been in office for a little over a month. The amount of things that he's begun to accomplish is pretty remarkable. But later this week, the president is set to meet with Ohio Governor John Kasich, who was his former foe during the whole election process. What is the goal of their meeting when those two meet at the end?
My guess would be that the president wants to make sure he has a good working relationship with the governor of a major industrial state. Even though they were rivals during the presidential campaign, and Governor Kasich said probably some things that weren't very flattering about President Trump, at the end of the day, you have to be willing to work with everybody. And what we've seen with this president is that he's willing to bring people in and work with them across partisan lines, even if they were previous foes or adversaries in the political process, to make sure that they're creating jobs in Ohio. And I'm sure that's part of what the conversation is going to be, is how can we continue to bring back those jobs in Ohio that used to be there not that long ago, those coal jobs, those steel jobs, the jobs along the Ohio River in southeast Ohio. Those are areas that have been disproportionately affected by bad trade deals. And the president, I am certain, wants to work with the governor to bring those jobs back to the state of Ohio so that those people can get back to work and we can continue to make America great again.
All right. And then, of course, also at the end of the week on Friday, we can expect to see the president giving a speech at CPAC. What kind of message do you think he will talk about? Will it be anything similar to his address today of unity at the National Museum of African American History and Culture?
It'll be unity, but it'll also be a forward-looking speech, I think. It's going to talk about what the problems are that our country faces in front of us, the solutions that are out there and available to us, understanding that fundamental and wholesale change has come to Washington, D.C. in the last 31 days. If you remember, the people at CPAC are the type of people who have traditionally operated outside the Republican political structure and wanted change. And for the first time in a very, very long time, those people who are going to come to CPAC are going to finally have the change that they have been advocating for a long time with President Donald Trump. So I think he's going to lay out his vision. He's going to talk about the concerns that we have in the federal government about overspending and the $20 trillion in debt with $4 trillion in income, and that we have to make sure that we're controlling taxpayer money. And those are the things that my guess is the president will lay out at CPAC, and I think he's going to get a very, very warm reception when he goes there on Friday.
All right. Can we expect to see you at CPAC with the president at all?
I will not be at CPAC on Friday. Sorry, he's got a full agenda that I'm not part of.
All right. Corey Lewandowski, thank you so much for joining us today, our OAN political commentator. Have a great day. We'll see you soon.